Welcome. NTD Good Morning starts now. Here are today's top stories. President Trump suspending attacks on Iran for 2 weeks, saying safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz is secured and negotiations are moving forward. We'll be covering the live update from the Pentagon later this morning. An American journalist is free after being kidnapped in Iraq. Secretary of State Marco Rubio giving more details. The Justice Department beginning an aggressive nationwide crackdown on fraud. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche outlining the scope of a newly created DOJ task force. Results are in for 2 elections. A Trump-backed candidate is set to serve in the U.S. House, and an expanded liberal majority on Wisconsin's Supreme Court. We have the details. NASA releases stunning new photos from the Artemis II mission, what the crew witnessed on their historic flyby of the moon.
This is NTD Good Morning, live from our global headquarters in New York City. Here are Stephanie Cox and Carrie Dunst.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Today's Wednesday, April 8th. Carrie's on special assignment. In today's top news, peace in the Middle East could be a step closer. President Trump announcing he would suspend attacks on Iran under specific conditions. NTD's Daniel Monahan has the details, including reactions from Israel.
President Trump writing on Truth Social last night, based on conversations with Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Field Marshal Asim Munir of Pakistan, and wherein they requested that I hold off the destructive force being sent tonight to Iran, and subject to the Islamic Republic of Iran agreeing to the complete, immediate, and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz, I agreed to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks. The president called Iran's 10-point peace plan a workable basis for continued negotiations. His announcement came about an hour and a half before his 8 p.m. deadline and Pakistan's request that he halt the attack. The president writing, "This will be a double-sided ceasefire. The reason for doing so is that we have already met and exceeded all military objectives and are very far along with a definitive agreement concerning long-term peace with Iran and peace in the Middle East." President Trump describing the deal as a big day for world peace, and said the U.S. would assist with traffic buildup in the Strait of Hormuz, adding that Iran could begin reconstruction. He called the potential outcome the golden age of the Middle East. The president also saying the U.S. would just be hanging around in order to make sure that everything goes well. Iran's foreign minister responded on behalf of the Supreme National Council of the Islamic Republic, saying, "If attacks are halted, our armed forces will cease defensive operations. For 2 weeks, safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz will be coordinated with Iran's armed forces, taking technical limitations into account." Earlier, American and Israeli forces had ramped up strikes against Iran. President Trump had threatened to target Iran's energy sector in response to attacks on shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu expressed support for the 2-week ceasefire, noting that it does not include Lebanon. And President Trump vowed an investigation after what he called fake news on the Iran deal was posted by CNN. CNN's headline reading, "Iran claims victory, says it forced U.S. to accept 10-point plan." The article saying that the U.S. had agreed to accept Iran's nuclear enrichment. The president says the statement was linked to a fake news site from Nigeria. He added that authorities are looking to determine whether or not a crime was committed. President Trump writing that CNN is being ordered to immediately withdraw this statement with full apologies for their, as usual, quote, terrible reporting. The president added that the results of the investigation will be announced in the near future. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Thank you, Daniel. And later this morning, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and General Dan Kane will be giving a press briefing at the Pentagon. According to Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, they will be covering how the U.S. has achieved and exceeded its core military objectives. We'll be covering that for you live here on NTD News. And joining us for insight on the latest in Iran is national security analyst Rebecca Grant. Good morning, Rebecca. President Trump just called this a big day for world peace and a potential golden age of the Middle East after meeting all U.S. military objectives. From your defense perspective, has Iran really run out of options on the Strait of Hormuz? And how does this 2-week ceasefire give the U.S. leverage to turn a temporary pause into lasting pressure on the regime?
Well, Iran certainly has run out of options, and the whole point of Operation Epic Fury was to take down and really eliminate their military capability. The Strait of Hormuz is going to be the thing we're watching most closely. I liked President Trump's words about hanging around. That means continued surveillance, not only of the strait, but I think of the rest of Iran as well. We have some great overwatch, and we're going to be keeping an eagle eye on anything that the remnants of Iran's military and IRGC might be doing. And of course, the key will be to see if traffic starts to flow in the strait. This could take a little time. The shippers need to make their decisions of where to send the cargoes and to give their captains the green light to do that. And then there's this language about, checking in with Iran as you do the passage, perhaps checking in with Oman. But, in about 48 hours, I think we'll know if the ceasefire is holding and if the pace of traffic in Hormuz is on the uptick.
Now, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu backs the ceasefire, but he made it clear it does not apply to Lebanon. How significant is that distinction when it comes to Iran's proxy, Hezbollah? And does keeping pressure on Lebanon prevent Tehran from simply shifting its aggression elsewhere while it claims victory?
I think Israel's stance there is reasonable, and it should not get in the way of finishing up the peace agreement talks with Iran. I mean, remember, Pakistan told us that they are expecting to convene U.S. and Iranian representatives in Islamabad at some point. Whether that happens, we don't know, but there is more negotiating to be done. And I think with Hezbollah, Israel has taken down so much of that capability in Lebanon. But with Hezbollah in particular, with that border right there, we have seen, occasional rocket fire. And I think nobody wants that to get in the way of the larger talks with Iran. But on the other hand, Israel still reserves the right to shoot back in case there's incoming coming from Lebanon towards Israel. So it's reasonable to me.
CNN ran a story saying Iran claims victory and that, according to Iran, the U.S. had accepted Tehran's nuclear enrichment. President Trump responded, calling the article false and dangerous and linking it to a Nigerian fake news site. In your view, does this kind of reporting undermine actual peace efforts?
I kind of think it does. I mean, maybe they made a mistake. You got free speech, okay, but there was certainly, who would put a headline, Iran claims victory? I mean, that just doesn't make any sense whatsoever, and it's not helpful at all, and it's not accurate. And I really think I would have liked to have seen more attention towards the 50,000 U.S. service members from all states that were deployed to the Middle East and carried out this tremendous Operation Epic Fury. There's no doubt that what got this ceasefire was President Trump having that big power plant and bridge attack option briefed and ready to go, possibly even planes in the air. And that is what made Iran cave in and agree to the ceasefire.
Now, the president described Iran's 10-point peace plan as a workable basis for negotiations, with safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz as the immediate condition. As someone who's tracked Iran's military capabilities closely, what are the realistic benchmarks the U.S. and Israel should demand in the next 2 weeks?
Oh, perfect question. And to me, it starts with no drone and missile attacks. So I don't want to see any of that coming out towards any of the Gulf states, our bases, or any of the traffic in the strait. I think that's number one, obviously. I think there'll have to be, President Trump will have to be satisfied about what he calls the nuclear dust, the status of the enriched uranium. There's a lot of intelligence, I think, that you and I don't get to see about the status of that material, and that will affect his decision. And then also remember, we're going to have Overwatch, our P-8 surveillance planes, our AWACS, fighters probably still flying in Iranian airspace, and really watching to see the posture of the IRG forces. Are they sitting around drinking tea, going about their daily lives, or are they trying to reconstitute and maneuver into position? That's going to be a big factor in the pace of the discussions to conclude that longer-term agreement.
Now, President Trump said America will be hanging around, as you mentioned, to make sure everything goes well and that reconstruction can begin. Looking ahead now, how does locking in the Strait of Hormuz opening and sidelining Iran's nuclear ambitions position the U.S. to deliver the kind of enduring regional stability that benefits America's allies and weakens the axis of regimes that have fueled chaos there for decades.
Well, we know President Trump came into office this time in particular. He really wants peace in the Middle East, and he can get it. And he's now, I think, achieved his number one objective if the ceasefire holds and an agreement comes forth. Because if you remove Iran as a threat, then you've got the ability to proceed with the Abraham Accords with other nations, in addition to the UAE and others recognizing Israel. Normalize that, and then the free flow of commerce. If Iran shows good behavior, there is the potential of sanctions relief, which would enormously reinforce and rebuild their economy. So I think President Trump has brought the world much closer to a potential lasting basis for peace in the Middle East.
And how can the president really effectively address the role of China and Russia in potentially helping the Iranian regime refuel and continue its assault against allies and the U.S. in the region?
Oh, Operation Epic Fury. This is a big win against China and Russia. China in particular supported Iran, kept them in the fight, bought their oil, sent them the chemicals to make missile fuel. And I think, but now they've seen, wow, this is what happens. Even all that isn't going to guarantee anything. And the U.S. has really shown its military dominance and the will to take that apart. So we've basically picked apart and defanged one of the members of that alliance, and that reverberates right through to Xi Jinping and to China and, of course, to Russia as well.
What would you advise President Trump in his potential meeting with Xi Jinping, as it's sort of sidelined at the moment as all attention is on Iran, but China remains a key player in so much chaos around the world? What would you advise the president in a potential meeting with Xi Jinping coming up?
I think President Trump will enjoy that meeting because he has changed the chessboard. The switch over in Venezuela, now U.S. Dominance and control around the Strait and around Iran. This really changes the chessboard. And so much of last year we worried about China controlling strategic minerals and using other levers in its geopolitical quest. Trump has dealt himself a really nice, strong hand where, frankly, it's U.S. forces that sit near control of a lot of China's oil, and that controls a part of their economy. This is going to be a nice meeting for President Trump going into that meeting.
Great to speak with you this morning. Rebecca Grant, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Global markets are rallying after the ceasefire announcement. Asian stocks surging while oil prices plunged following the agreement. U.S. crude dropping more than 16% as fears of a wider conflict ease. The deal includes reopening the Strait of Hormuz, as you've heard, which is, of course, a key route for global oil supplies. President Trump says the pause in fighting will allow time to finalize a broader agreement. And reactions pouring in from around the world now to the U.S. and Iran ceasefire announcement. Leaders welcoming the pause in fighting.
This is very positive, and we hope that it leads to a permanent de-escalation and an end to the conflict and a resolution that allows the world to go forward.
We are welcoming the US and Iran's announcement as a positive development.
It is indeed through negotiation that we can provide the security guarantees necessary for stability throughout the region. Therefore, the announcement of this ceasefire is very good news.
The ceasefire is being watched closely in the Gulf, with Oman's foreign ministry saying it welcomes the announcement. Many countries are calling for the pause to be developed into a permanent cessation of hostilities. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer saying, together with our partners, we must do all we can to support and sustain this ceasefire, turn it into a lasting agreement and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. French President Emmanuel Macron also calling for Lebanon to be included in all discussions about the ceasefire. And an American journalist is free after being kidnapped in Iraq. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announcing the release of Shelley Kittleson, who was abducted near Baghdad. The Iran-aligned terrorist group Kataib Hezbollah had been holding Kittleson since late March. In a post on X, the Secretary of State writing, the wrongful detention or kidnapping of U.S. nationals will not be tolerated. We will continue to use every tool to bring Americans home and to hold accountable those responsible. Rubio says multiple U.S. agencies and Iraqi partners helped secure her release. And the U.S. is now working to support her safe departure from Iraq. Joining us live now is Rod Martin, chairman of the Institute for the American Future and board member of the Center for Security Policy. Good to have you with us this morning, Rod. As we heard just now, President Trump's ceasefire announcement coincides with the release of American journalist Shelley Kittleson, who was kidnapped by the Iran-backed Kataib Hezbollah militia in Iraq. How does this development demonstrate the effectiveness of America's firm stance? And what does it signal to Tehran at the same time?
Well, the president has been very focused in both of his terms on getting Americans held captive around the world released. And this is not surprising. It does demonstrate that there are some teeth to this ceasefire, which is honestly a huge opportunity for the president, depending on which way he's going to go with it. I mean, first, you have the possibility that we really are in a position to negotiate with the remnants of the Iranian regime, having decimated their ranks, having eliminated their top leadership, having eliminated most of their ability to wage war. It is possible that they listened to his ultimatum and said, look, we just can't take it anymore. So perhaps we can actually have a meaningful negotiation. My guess is it's actually more option two. Option two is this actually buys a moment, a 2-week opening for all of those tankers bottled up in the Persian Gulf to get out, which stabilizes oil prices at a lower number. I saw WTI as low as 93 a barrel here a minute ago. This is a boon to a lot of people that we're allied with and a few people like China who we aren't. And it actually does some good things for the United States while we actually get ready, I think, for the arming and rising of the Iranian people. The president said some very interesting things in the last 48 hours about that. One of them, of course, this interesting tweet about having sent arms through the Kurds, and the Kurds stole a bunch of it and sold it. That seems unlikely. It seems like a distraction, but it doesn't seem unrealistic that we would be arming the Iranian people. And I doubt very much that that one channel would be the only means. Second, you need to cease bombing long enough for those people to be able to do what they need to do in some relative safety. They have enough trouble with Bosage and the IRGC. They don't need to be being bombed at the same time. So I think there's a decent chance that we see over the next 2 weeks that opportunity. The president said that second statement I alluded to, that he was worried that people in Iran would be concerned that he was going to leave them in the lurch, and that will not happen. Okay, all these pieces fit together if that's the aim, and if not, perhaps we get to a more reasonable regime in Tehran through negotiation, but I'm betting it's option two.
Now, looking more broadly at responses to this ceasefire, some world leaders have responded positively but cautiously. In your view, how important is it for the U.S. to keep targeted pressure on Iran's proxies while coordinating with the allies to turn this temporary pause into something more durable?
Oh, it's absolutely essential. You know, take the case of Hezbollah, which has occupied the southern portion of Lebanon virtually my whole lifetime. You know, this is just an arm of the Iranian regime. There's no other way to describe it. They are directed, funded, armed from Tehran, and they're sitting there lobbing missiles into Israel whenever they feel like it. Well, if we had a similar enemy force, particularly a state-sponsored one, sitting across the Rio Grande, lobbing missiles into Brownsville and San Antonio, it wouldn't take 10 minutes for the United States Army to be in Mexico clearing that out. The Israelis have actually shown tremendous restraint. We're not really willing to let the Houthis hold shipping hostage in the Red Sea. Joe Biden was, but Donald Trump certainly isn't. And we've seen him act against that. So I think we will see continued pressure there. I also note that the Iranians have conducted a number of attacks since the ceasefire was announced. They conducted a drone strike in Kuwait this morning. They were still firing missiles at Israel late last night before I went to bed. You know, they are not being a good actor in this. And so I think there's a decent chance the ceasefire could fall apart significantly before 2 weeks if they continue in that vein. But the bottom line is Donald Trump has reached a point where the Iranian regime is sufficiently afraid of what he was about to do for them to act in a positive way. And that buys us some time for some things that I think could be really transformative.
Watching it closely. Thank you so much for your time this morning, Rod Martin.
Thank you.
And up ahead, the Justice Department begins pushing hard to crack down on fraud. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche giving more details about a new anti-fraud task force. Results are in for 2 elections. The Trump-backed candidate is set to serve in the U.S. House, and an expanded liberal majority on Wisconsin Supreme Court. We have the results.
According to ancient Chinese medicine, purslane is considered a medicinal herb and is used to help lower cholesterol, improve vascular functions, and prevent diabetes. Perilla seeds can nourish the lungs and spleen. It is used to treat asthma and improve pulmonary functions. Puritang green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds from Hwangmae Mountain in South Korea. It contains over 90% of omega-3, 6, 7, and 9. The highest concentration possible without chemical additives. The soft gel is made of natural seaweed. It is 100% organic and vegan. Both adults and children can take it with peace of mind. Ancient recipes were passed down from heaven to bring prosperity and longevity. Puritang green vegetable omega-3.
So at the age of 5, I was sexually molested. I had my first child at the age of 15 and became homeless at the age of 16. The scariest part about not having a place to live was having a child and not having a place to live and not knowing where our meal was going to come from and where we're going to sleep. To be homeless as a teen, I didn't ask for that.
No young person should ever have to worry about having a safe place to sleep at night, or a warm meal to eat, or whether anyone cares about them. 1 in 10 young adults will experience a form of homelessness this year, and that's unacceptable. But the good news is there is an organization making a big difference, Covenant House.
Call or go online now. For a gift of only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night.
For over 50 years, Covenant House has been helping youth in crisis.
It was pretty tough. But Covenant House really helped me and really helped mold me into the woman I am today.
Call or go online right now to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month. With your monthly donation, you'll receive this soft, comforting blanket as a reminder of the warmth and safety your gift will provide a young person tonight.
I have no words to express how Covenant House changed my life. They gave me the love that I needed. They just really genuinely just wanted to help me succeed, and I'm succeeding.
Your $19 monthly gift is urgently needed to reach other young people who are facing unimaginable situations. Call or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
Your support makes the work of Covenant House possible. Thank you for caring.
Welcome back. Results are in for 2 key elections, one to replace former Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene in Georgia, and another for a seat on Wisconsin Supreme Court. NTD's Melina Weiskup has the results.
Georgia voters have elected Clay Fuller, a district attorney, to serve in Congress.
If you need to see any proof that God guides everything in this country, all you have to do is look at the man that is standing on this stage right now. And it's not because we had a huge victory tonight, because we had a huge victory tonight. But it is because I'm an absolute miracle to be above ground at this point.
The congressman-elect says a diagnosis of thyroid cancer was a wake-up call from God. President Trump endorsed Clay Fuller, who won nearly 56% of the vote, though his opponent said the race showed progress for Democrats in the Ruby Red district.
The Republican Party had to spend almost $2 million in a smear campaign to get this win. They should never have to spend money on a Ruby Red district. That tells you that things are changing here in Northwest Georgia.
Harris conceded the race Tuesday night. Fuller will fill the seat of retired Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene until the end of this year, but will have only 1 month off the campaign trail. Fuller will have to run in another Republican primary in May to secure a full 2-year term. Nevertheless, the win will help cushion the bare-bones Republican majority in the House. House Speaker Mike Johnson quick to congratulate Fuller to continue delivering results and saving America.
Now, the Democrat Party poured millions of dollars into this campaign, poured lies into this campaign, but they can't beat Donald Trump, and they never will. And I will be on Capitol Hill as a warrior to have his back each and every day.
In a separate election in Wisconsin, Supreme Court candidate Chris Taylor defeated conservative-backed Maria Lazar. Lazar called Taylor to concede the race.
Know that your votes were not cast in vain, and that you did set a mark and draw a line and say, Wisconsin deserves better. And I'm hopeful in future years that will happen.
Taylor's win will expand and secure the court's liberal majority until at least 2030.
People are hungry for a judiciary that prioritizes them, that protects our rights, that affords all Wisconsinites equal justice under the law.
Her campaign largely centered on abortion access. Taylor previously served as a policy director for Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin.
The Justice Department is cracking down on fraud. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche laying out the scope of the new National Fraud Enforcement Division. Here's what he said.
The newly created Fraud Enforcement Division is cracking down on fraud across the country. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche with more insight on the program.
And so today I'm proud to announce in greater detail the creation of the National Fraud Enforcement Division. Its core mission will be to zealously investigate and prosecute those who steal taxpayer dollars and rip off the American people.
Blanche says the effort comes as fraud cases continue to surge nationwide.
Across our U.S. attorneys' offices all over this country, we currently have over 8,000 fraud matters underway. These cases represent a fraction of the fraud ripping off our country every day.
The new division was created during former Attorney General Pam Bondi's tenure. It will bring together top prosecutors and specialists under one umbrella with a focus on healthcare, tax, benefits, and corporate fraud. And the effort will expand nationwide, Blanche saying every U.S. attorney's office across the country will take part.
In pure numbers, that there will be an additional 93 prosecutors in every district across the country devoted to the mission of combating fraud.
The announcement comes alongside a series of major enforcement actions announced this week. The Justice Department says it has already moved on cases totaling more than $500 million in alleged fraud tied to taxpayer-funded programs. That includes an insurance brokerage accused of exploiting vulnerable consumers to fraudulently enroll them in subsidized health plans, collecting more than $141 million in unwarranted subsidies. In another case, a California man pleaded guilty to submitting nearly $270 million in fraudulent Medicaid claims for medications that were not medically necessary and often never provided. And in Nevada, a business owner sentenced to prison for a tax scheme that sought nearly $100 million in COVID-19 related employment tax credits. Blanche delivering a word of caution.
To the fraudsters who seek to take advantage of our nation, let this be a warning. The department will investigate you, we will charge you with crimes, and we will ensure that you are punished for your actions.
This new task force is part of a broader effort by the Trump administration to go after fraud. It comes after allegations of massive fraud in Los Angeles and Minnesota, with Minnesota Governor Tim Walz ending his bid for re-election in the wake of a daycare fraud scheme.
Now, a first-of-its-kind conviction under a new federal law targeting AI abuse. The Justice Department says a Columbus man has pleaded guilty to cyber crimes involving explicit images and threats. Prosecutors say the case marks the first conviction under the Take It Down Act, passed in 2025. Investigators say the defendant used dozens of AI platforms and models to carry out a campaign of harassment. The FBI says he used AI to create pornographic videos of adult victims and distribute them to their coworkers. He also used the faces of boys from his community to generate child sexual abuse material and post it online. First Lady Melania Trump calling the conviction a milestone in protecting victims from non-consensual AI-generated sexually explicit images, cyberstalking, and threats of violence. And a state-sponsored organ transplant industry profiting from the lives of prisoners of conscience. A panel in Washington, D.C. exposing the Chinese Communist Party's crime of forced organ harvesting. NTD Sam Wong has the details.
A steady supply of organs drawn from a massive pool of living prisoners of conscience. A panel at the Heritage Foundation explores the Chinese Communist Party's state-sponsored crime of forced organ harvesting.
Some poor Falun Gong practitioner or some Uyghur woman or man who's now being strapped down. They don't shoot them anymore. They strap them down, they put them under anesthesia, and they steal 2 to 6 of their organs for transplant.
In 2019, the London-based China Tribunal concluded that, quote, forced organ harvesting has been committed for years throughout China on a significant scale, and that Falun Gong practitioners have been one and probably the main source of organ supply. Despite following the universal principles of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance, the spiritual practice of Falun Gong has been the subject of a nationwide persecution in China since 1999. In his new book titled Kill to Order, Epoch Times senior editor Jan Jekielek exposes the scope and scale of this human rights atrocity.
They blood typed, tissue typed, and organ scanned these people. When this deal was made, there's already someone in a database on the Chinese Communist Party side pre-matched, okay, and that person can be killed to order on demand.
As the persecution goes on, the international medical community is facing calls to cut ties with China's transplant industry.
What's happening in China is, to me, Fourth Reich stuff. The response internationally has been very muted, and the response in the medical community has been muted, and the response in the bioethics community has been muted.
Today, the CCP has expanded the crime of forced organ harvesting into a billion-dollar industry, and its pool of victims is extending to other ethnic and religious minorities, such as Uyghurs and House Christians.
We're dealing with communist China as if, in fact, they're just another great power. But this sort of thing shines a light on the nature of the regime that most people would have a very hard time even comprehending.
Sam Wong, NTD News, Washington, D.C.
For more information on the CCP's crime of forced organ harvesting, go check out Killed to Order by Epoch Times senior editor Jan Jekielek. You can order the book on Amazon or go to killedtoorder.com. Later this morning, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and General Dan Kane will give an update on the Iran war. This comes as President Trump announces a conditional 2-week ceasefire just hours before that deadline. Will the ceasefire hold? We have analysts weighing in ahead.
My mom and dad were traditional Asian parents.
Now my father would go to work before I woke up in the morning, and then he would come home too tired to play with me. I tell my son, I love you every single day. Now my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. So I teased him the other day and I said, how come you never say that to me? And he said, you're too old now. Now that he's a grandfather, he says, I love you to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, forget the material things, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious minute or moment.
Say bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back. Later this morning, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and General Dan Kane will be giving a press briefing at the Pentagon. This comes as President Trump announces a 2-week suspension of attacks on Iran, highlighting breakthroughs in talks and guarantees for safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz. For analysis, we welcome Gerard Falidi. He's a Middle East affairs analyst and an attorney specializing in international law. Gerard, good morning. This morning, President Trump's post on Truth Social, the United States will work closely with Iran, which we have determined has gone through what will be a very productive regime change. He says there will be no enrichment of uranium, and the United States will be working with Iran to dig up and remove all of the deeply buried B-2 bombers' nuclear dust. He continues that we are and will be talking tariff and sanctions relief with Iran. Many of the 15 points have already been agreed to. And he says, thank you for your attention to this matter. Gerard, your reactions to this post?
Well, I think we're all waiting to see exactly what happens next, what happens in the next 2 weeks, and whether a deal can be finalized that reflects America's priority, which does include the removal of any nuclear material from Iran, the cessation and destruction of its weapons program, its nuclear program, its ballistic missile construction, and its continued support for terrorist proxies like Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. Now, we have been here before, not necessarily in the context of this war, but certainly with Iran, where we seem to have almost reached a deal, but not quite. So it remains very much the devil is in the details, and we do need to see what happens in the next 2 weeks and how much progress is made towards actually finalizing a deal.
Now, President Trump later also posted, quote, a country supplying military weapons to Iran will be immediately tariffed on any and all goods sold to the United States of America, 50% effective immediately. There will be no exclusions or exemptions. Your reaction to that post?
Well, I think that's a strong message to China, which has already had vessels at sea taking arms equipment and materials to Iran. So I think that is a very strong deterrent factor that Iran should not be in a position to rebuild its military arsenal, and that the United States will take foreign interference, especially from China, very seriously. So I think President Trump understands that Iran cannot be allowed to continue rebuilding what assets it has lost in this war.
And President Trump is now saying the U.S. has already met all military objectives in Iran. Can you help us understand what the president means there?
What he seems to mean, and again, with President Trump, we always wait until the last minute until he clarifies himself what he means. But what he seems to mean is that we have destroyed a vast portion of their capability to enrich uranium, which was the imminent threat of nuclear arms development. We've also destroyed a vast majority of their ballistic missile sites and launchers, greatly limiting their ability to continue launching missiles in the future, as well as we have depleted their stockpiles. This means that Iran is not as big as a threat as it was before the war towards Israel and American allies in the Gulf. However, Iran still obtains missile capabilities, so this is not completely a defeat for Iran. It is a negotiated deal.
And the president is calling Iran's 10-point peace plan proposal a workable basis for continued talks. Tell me your perspective on that.
Well, look, anytime you have talk, it's better than maintaining a military posture that costs people their lives. But we also have to be very wary about what Iran is actually getting out of this. Because if what happens is Iran remains virtually unchanged, it's the same regime, the same people in power, it's the same ideology of exporting terror and wanting to cause death and destruction to America, that's not a long-term basis for success. More than that, what this deal seems to include is the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, but to Iran's benefit, meaning that Iran maintains control over the strait, which is becoming more entrenched in this deal, including potentially allowing Iran to charge a transit fee, which will add money to Iran's treasury and increase its ability to buy arms. So all these 10 points are things that are very much in the details. We need to be sure that Iran is not given the opportunity to continue remaining a regional threat.
Now, some of our analysts we spoke to earlier in the morning have suggested that this 2-week phase is perhaps more about restocking supplies and getting ready for another assault. Do you see that as a really legitimate purpose to this ceasefire?
It is, and this is what we've seen in recent years, not just with Iran, but we've seen this in Gaza. We've seen this in Ukraine as well. That these temporary ceasefires are a means for the belligerents to restock, to resupply, and to position themselves for the next round of attacks. However, we need to bear in mind as well that there is tremendous international pressure bearing on this situation, not just from Pakistan and Oman and Turkey, who have been trying to reach a deal to end hostilities, but also from Gulf Arab countries, from Europe, and even in the United States, domestic political pressure on President Trump. So this is more questionable whether in 2 weeks we will be in a position where the will to continue this war will still exist.
And how do you see Iran's potential to comply with the main condition here for this ceasefire to allow passage of ships through the strait?
No, I think it's very likely that it will comply and it will allow passage of ships, but on its own terms, meaning that what Iran is getting out of this is essentially de facto control of the Strait of Hormuz, which is an international waterway, because of its threats to shipping. This will also include, more likely than not, shipping companies paying a fee, essentially a ransom, to the government of Iran in order to allow safe passage of its ships. So yes, we will likely see reopening of the straits, but under Iranian control and on Iranian terms, and that is a loss to the world community in terms of this conflict.
What do you think the U.S. and other nations can do long term about Iran holding the Strait of Hormuz hostage?
Well, long term, we need our allies to step up. I think that every country in the world realized the significance of this problem when oil prices shot up and scarcity started becoming an issue. But there was a lack of political will by many in Europe and Asia to actually act to keep the straits open. So I think long term, there need to be very in-depth discussions by a coalition of countries in this world who need those straits to be open on how to deal with this problem long term, which may well mean an increased military presence in the Gulf, not just by the United States, but to ensure safe transit.
We've also seen some murmurings of a potential shift away from the Strait of Hormuz and dependence on that. Some observers suggest that this could be a prime opportunity to really shift reliance on Iran in this sense, but also on the strait itself. And how do you see the potential for that at this point in time?
There absolutely is a potential, and for years there have been discussions of building pipelines that cut basically through the UAE, run around the Saudi coast down to Oman to completely bypass the strait, or alternatively to create a pipeline across Saudi Arabia going to the Red Sea to completely bypass the strait as well. These are long-term construction projects that will cost in the billions of dollars. They have been too expensive to this point to take on, but they certainly have been discussed for years. And I think that with this war, what this war has shown is that these projects can actually be beneficial, and notwithstanding the high cost, they're worth doing in order to escape that stranglehold of Iran on the Gulf.
And how do you see the Israeli Prime Minister's exclusion of Lebanon from this ceasefire agreement necessary in terms of the ongoing attacks and the potential for ongoing attacks? Your thoughts there?
Well, for Israel, it has been under constant attack from Hezbollah for many years now. This is nothing new. Unfortunately, it's not been a decisive resolution with Hezbollah. It could have been included as part of a broader deal with Iran to stop sponsoring its entities like Hezbollah. But for Israel, it's an existential threat because Lebanon continues to be a host of this terrorist organization that does nonstop launches of missiles and rockets targeting Israeli civilians. So for Israel, it's still in a defensive war against Hezbollah, and until Hezbollah stops fighting and lays down its weapons, this war will need to continue for the safety of Israel's population.
And we saw yesterday Russia and China blocking a UN resolution to protect the strait. What does that reveal about their alignment with Iran and its impact on the U.S. strategy?
Although their alignment with Iran is really not remarkable. It goes back many years, but it also shows that they're not looking to expedite a resolution to this conflict on terms that are favorable to the United States or the Gulf, but rather that are favorable to Iran and its ability to continue doing business with Russia and China. So this is how Russia and China really show their allegiance. They weren't able to do so militarily or diplomatically in other ways, but at the United Nations, they can certainly block any efforts by the majority of countries that want to see international law applied evenly and properly to Iran with regard to the Strait. So this is not surprising, but it does show that a long-term diplomatic solution may be problematic when it's being blocked at the United Nations by Russia and China.
Gerard Filiti, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Taiwan's top opposition leader is in China, sparking backlash as Beijing ramps up pressure on the island. The visit comes as U.S. lawmakers double down on support for Taiwan's defense. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has the details.
Taiwan's opposition leader landing in Shanghai, welcomed by Chinese Communist Party officials, then quickly heading inland.
China is actively intervening in their elections. They're actually courting some of the leaders to bring them over to mainland China.
Chung Lee-won is framing her 6-day trip and potential meeting with CCP leader Xi Jinping as a journey for peace, but critics say it plays right into Beijing's hands. China expert Gordon Chang saying she's in China to sell out her country. That's because her party, the Kuomintang, or KMT, is widely seen as more Beijing-friendly than to the ruling party under President Lai. The KMT is holding up a $40 billion defense package in parliament, even as China is ramping up its military drills near Taiwan.
Xi Jinping has said to his military to be ready by 2027 to take Taiwan by force if necessary.
The U.S. recently approved its largest ever weapons sale to Taiwan, worth $11 billion. But that means nothing if the island's KMT-controlled parliament won't pass a defense package. A group of U.S. lawmakers is now on the ground in Taiwan, led by Congressman Zach Nunn, a harsh critic of the CCP. Just last week, a bipartisan group of senators was also in Taiwan, meeting with President Lai.
We are concerned by the increased pressure from Beijing, including military activity around Taiwan.
The lawmakers pushing Taiwan's parliament to pass its defense package, warning delays could weaken deterrence against Beijing.
I'd like to personally endorse the special defense budget and tell you back in Washington, D.C. that my colleagues are watching.
And as President Trump prepares for a high-stakes meeting with Chinese leader Xi Jinping next month, all eyes are on whether Taiwan will take front and center. For NTD News Washington, I'm Jack Bradley.
Thank you, Jack. And coming up, NASA releases spectacular new photos from Artemis 2, what the crew captured during their lunar flyby.
What has lasted 5,000 years was once almost lost. Now, the world awaits the divine culture's return. See it at least once in your lifetime. Shen Yun returns to David Koch Theater, March 25th through April 12th. Get your tickets now at shenyun.com.
This is how I keep my joints happy.
Omega XL is a powerful natural supplement backed by 40 years of clinical research. Take control of your pain, like Cynthia Bailey.
My knees in particular started giving me pain issues all the way back to my modeling days, from just running through airports, photo shoots. After taking Omega XL, I really started to notice how less stiff I was, especially my knees and my hip. Has Omega XL changed my life? Yes. I barely notice my joint pain anymore. Now I'm like literally sprinting through the airports. My secret is Omega XL.
Pick up the phone and call now to get this exclusive TV offer. Buy one Omega XL and we'll send you a second bottle absolutely free. You'll also get a free bottle of Vitamin XL D3. Buy one, get two free. A total value of over $115, all for just $49.95. You save more than 55% and shipping is free. Backed by a money-back guarantee and is not available in stores. Operators are standing by, so call now.
My 15-year-old son, Ethan, and I had a fun and relaxing morning. We returned home, and Ethan walked to his best friend's house an hour later. I heard the ambulance scream by the street, carrying my beautiful boy. Ethan was shot in the head in his best friend's house with an unsecured gun. He had 0 chance of survival. The father, the gun owner, he stored his 3 guns and bullets in a shoebox.
How do you feel?
That has to be the most horrific experience that a human could ever have.
David, would you give any advice?
First thing you do is not keep your ammunition with your weapons, and that your weapons need to be locked at all times.
Where did that time go? I don't know how I got here.
You've done the hard part. You quit smoking. Now do the easy part and get scanned for lung cancer. If you smoked, you may still be at risk, but early detection could save your life. Talk to your doctor and learn more at savedbythescan.org.
Welcome back. New images from NASA's Artemis II mission are offering a stunning look at space as astronauts return from a historic lunar flyby. The crew capturing dramatic views of Earth from the Orion spacecraft, highlighting our home planet's beauty from deep space. One image shows the moon's cratered surface in sharp detail, with Earth appearing to set in the distance. Cameras on Orion also catching a rare eclipse, the moon silhouetted against the sun during the flyby. NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman saying the Artemis crew captured over 175 gigabytes of imagery from the lunar past just Monday alone. Those images were transmitted back to Earth primarily using lasers. The mission marking the first time humans have ever documented parts of the moon's far side. The images will be publicly available on NASA's website. As the crew now gets set for splashdown, their mission sets the stage for humanity's attempt to return to the moon's surface in 2028. NASA's Orion spacecraft is now headed back toward Earth. NTD correspondent Jason Blair has more.
When we were on the far side of the moon and out of contact with planet Earth, we all knew it, and it was a milestone. We saw Earth disappear.
NASA releases new photos from the far side of the moon taken by the Artemis II crew on Monday. It's the first time since Apollo 17 in 1972 that humans have seen the far side with their own eyes.
That was a very surreal moment for this crew.
Some photos captured solar eclipse shots. This is when the crew needed to wear glasses protecting their eyes during the moment. During the flyby, the crew also became the farthest traveling in history, hitting just over 253,000 miles from Earth. After the crew circled the moon, they were congratulated by President Trump during a phone call.
Today you've made history and made all America really proud. What is the most unforgettable part of this really historic day? The whole world is watching and listening. Please tell me.
And we saw sites, Oriental sites that no human has ever seen before, not even in Apollo, and that was amazing for us.
The call didn't end without an invitation from the president to the White House.
I'll ask for your autograph, because I don't really ask for autographs much, but you deserve that. You really are something. This is really big stuff.
NASA says the Artemis II mission is a step toward getting humans back on the moon again with eventual sites on Mars. The Artemis crew is on track to return to Earth on Friday. Jason Blair, NTD News.
Thank you, Jason. And Route 66, one of the world's most famous highways, is marking its 100th birthday this year. Known for its neon lights and roadside diners, this unofficial highway hosts a long and rich history that's made its way into American culture for generations.
Perhaps one of the most interesting things about Route 66 in this time is officially it doesn't exist. This highway hasn't existed as a U.S. highway since 1985, and yet it's more popular than any time in its history. It played an integral part in development of American car culture. It's become an internationally recognized symbol. It is the American experience made manifest, the great American road trip.
The 100th anniversary is set to bring more traffic to the 2,400-mile route as people get ready to make their road trip across the U.S. from Chicago to Santa Monica Pier near Los Angeles. The route traces paths once used by the Native Americans and early pioneers. And as road trippers make their way across Route 66, communities alongside the highway are expected to plan a variety of events and activities to commemorate the milestone. That's all we have time for this hour, but we will soon be back to bring you the Pentagon press briefing right after this break. Stay tuned.
Are you sitting at home living in pain? Maybe it's in your hands, maybe your back or your hips. The good news is you don't need to live in pain. Why? Because there is Omega XL, a one-of-a-kind, natural, powerful joint relief supplement created from the green lip mussels of New Zealand. Drug-free, non-habit forming. It's small, easy to swallow, and it's backed by more than 40 years of clinical research. If you're experiencing daily aches and pains due to aging and overuse, try Omega XL. Just ask anybody who uses it. The results are undeniable.
I had a lot of joint pain, and that slowed me down.
I had considerable pain in my back.
Really felt the pain. I mean, in my ankles and in my heels.
I'm telling you about something that's gonna change your life. It has revived me.
This works.
I'm not a prisoner anymore to my pain.
As I was getting older, my joints started to feel that wear and tear. But then I tried Omega XL, and it changed my life. Today I'm here at my ranch exercising some of my polo ponies. So as you get older, it gets tougher. I was starting to suffer some of that business, and then I ran into somebody who said, look, you should try Omega XL. And look what it's done. I feel better than I felt in the last 30 years. And Omega XL gave me the ability to get back in the saddle. It works great. If you're in pain, I want you to know that there is real hope out there. I'm living proof. See the difference it can make in your life, just like it did in mine.
Call now or order online to receive our special TV offer. Buy one bottle of Omega XL and get a second free. Plus, we'll also include a free bottle of Vitamin XL D3. 2 free bottles for the price of 1 bottle of Omega XL. A total value of $115. You pay only $49.95 and it ships free. Plus, you get a money-back guarantee. Buy one, get 2 free. Call or go online right now.
I was a quarterback at Hardaway High School. College first-round draft pick, on and off the field. We were taught to not show any signs of weakness. During the football season, I would stop eating. But I didn't know I was depressed. I thought that something was wrong with me. For 20-plus years was physical. We didn't have any education behind what mental health was. I started to learn it starts here first. If this is together, I'll be better as a father, as a man, and as a husband. Put the importance on your mental health. I'm not scared to talk about it anymore. The first tool is therapy. The second one is positive self-talk. And then journaling, putting your thoughts on paper. We have to redefine what being a strong man is and heal, love your mind.
There are real consequences to controlled media. And NTD's founders know them firsthand. Our freedom of thought is the price. This is the lesson that guides us in everything we do.
So there's the tear gas there.
We know the value of a free society. And we take seriously the responsibility to preserve it. We are NTD.
Welcome. NTD Good Morning starts now. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and General Dan Kane will be giving a live briefing very soon. You're looking at a live shot of the Pentagon press room where the two will be giving an update on the war in Iran. President Trump says the U.S. is working with Iran to limit their uranium enrichment following a temporary truce, as well as talks on tariff and sanction relief. Results are in for two elections. A Trump-backed candidate is set to serve in the U.S. House, and an expanded liberal majority on Wisconsin Supreme Court. We have the results. NASA releases stunning new photos from the Artemis II mission, what the crew witnessed on their historic flyby of the moon.
This is NTD Good Morning, live from our global headquarters in New York City. Here are Stephanie Cox and Carrie Dunst.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Today is Wednesday, April 8th, and Carrie's on special assignment. In today's top news, soon Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and General Dan Kane will be giving a press briefing at the Pentagon. According to Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, they'll be covering how the U.S. has achieved and exceeded its core military objectives in Iran. We'll be covering that for you live here on NTD News. And a 2-week Iran ceasefire now begins, as President Trump says the U.S. is working with Iran to limit their uranium enrichment and is starting talks on tariffs and sanctions relief with Iran. As to what's next, President Trump says Iran's 10-point peace proposal is a workable basis on which to negotiate a fuller deal. The White House confirms there are discussions about in-person peace talks, but nothing's final. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao has the latest on the deal.
The U.S. and Iran have now entered a 2-week ceasefire contingent on Iran reopening the Strait of Hormuz. The president this morning posting on Truth Social saying that the U.S. will work closely with Iran, adding that there will be no enrichment of uranium and the U.S. will working with Iran dig up and remove all of the deeply buried B-2 bombers' nuclear dust. The president also announcing that a country supplying military weapons to Iran will be immediately tariffed on any and all goods sold to the U.S., 50% effective immediately. President Trump's announcement of a ceasefire comes just hours before his Tuesday night deadline for Tehran to cave or see its whole civilization die. World leaders welcoming the ceasefire. Vice President J.D. Vance speaking in Hungary today, warning Iran not to cheat.
If the Iranians are willing, in good faith, to work with us, I think we can make an agreement. If they're going to lie, if they're going to cheat, if they're going to try to prevent even the fragile truce that we've set up from taking place, then they're not going to be happy.
At the White House today, the president will meet with the NATO chief, and the White House press secretary will brief reporters at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Reporting by Iris Tao, NTD News.
Thank you, Iris. And global markets are rallying after the ceasefire announcement. Asian stocks surging while oil prices plunged following the agreement. And we are going live now to the Pentagon press briefing. Breaking news. Check it out. We will soon be hearing from, here we go, Hegseth speaking now to the
Americans lying and blackmailing their way toward a nuclear weapon, so they thought. No longer. Not on our watch. Other presidents marked time and kicked the can down the road. President Trump made history. From the strike that took out Qasem Soleimani, to tearing up the disastrous Obama-Iran deal, to the precision campaign that obliterated Iran's nuclear sites in Operation Midnight Hammer, to the decisive military victory we just achieved in Operation Epic Fury. No other president has shown the courage and resolve of this commander-in-chief. President Trump forged this moment. Iran begged for this ceasefire, and we all know it. As the President truth this morning, a big day for world peace. Iran wants it to happen. They've had enough. Operation Epic Fury was a historic and overwhelming victory on the battlefield. A capital V military victory. By any measure, Epic Fury decimated Iran's military and rendered it combat ineffective for years to come. You see, in less than 40 days, one of our combatant commands, Central Command, CENTCOM, using less than 10% of America's total combat power, dismantled one of the world's largest militaries. The world's leading state sponsor of terrorism proved utterly incapable of defending itself, its people, or its territory. We untied just a fraction of our strength, and Iran suffered a devastating military defeat. Together with our Israeli partners, America's military achieved every single objective, on plan, on schedule, exactly as laid out from day one. Iran's Navy is at the bottom of the sea, whether it's the Soleimani class, their frigate class, their prized drone aircraft carriers, submarines, mine layers, sunk. Iran's Air Force has been wiped out. Iran no longer has an air defense, any sort of a comprehensive air defense system. We own their skies. Their missile program is functionally destroyed. Launchers, production facilities, and existing stockpiles depleted and decimated. And almost completely ineffective. Iran shot hundreds and hundreds of missiles and one-way attack drones at our aircraft carrier. They were obsessed with it, and they never got even close. Every single one of those shots easily shot down miles and miles away from the Abe Lincoln. They were blowing ammo into fantasy land. Contrast that with, most significantly, in last night's wave of more than 800 strikes, we finished completely destroying Iran's defense industrial base, a core pillar of our mission objective. What little they have left buried in bunkers is all they will have. They can still shoot, we know that. Their command and control is so decimated they can't really talk and coordinate, so they still may shoot here and there, but that would be very, very unwise. But they can no longer build missiles, build rockets, build launchers, or build UAVs. Their factories have been razed to the ground, set back in historic fashion. You see, had Iran refused our terms, the next targets would have been their power plants, their bridges, and oil and energy infrastructure. Targets they could not defend and could not realistically rebuild. It would have taken them decades, and we were locked and loaded. They couldn't defend against it. President Trump had the power to cripple Iran's entire economy in minutes, but he chose mercy. He spared those targets because Iran accepted the ceasefire under overwhelming pressure. The new Iranian regime understood that a deal was far better than the fate that awaited them. This new regime just happened to look at what happened to their predecessors. Their top leadership was systematically eliminated. The previous Iranian supreme leader, dead. The Supreme National Security Council Secretary, dead. The Supreme Leader Office Advisor, dead. The Supreme Leader Military Office Chief, dead. The Defense Minister, no longer with us. The IRGC Commander, dead. The Armed Forces General Staff Commander, dead. The Intelligence Minister, dead. The IRGC Navy Commander, no longer here. The IRGC Intel Chief, dead. I skipped over a bunch, and I could go on and on and on, to include the new, so-called new Supreme Leader wounded and disfigured. This new regime was out of options and out of time, so they cut a deal. They know this agreement means that they will never, ever possess a nuclear weapon. Under the terms, any nuclear material they should have will be removed. Any material, they should not have will be removed. Right now, their dust is deeply buried and watched 24/7 overhead. The president has been clear from the beginning, there will be no Iranian nuclear weapons. Period. Full stop. Other presidents said it. President Trump did it. Operation Epic Fury. Less than 6 weeks, clear mission, decisive action, overwhelming firepower, America first, a historic battlefield victory. For decades, Iran killed Americans with roadside bombs in Iraq, using cowardly proxies to do their dirty work while they hid safely in Tehran. They struck our embassies with car bombs and attacked from the shadows, never daring to face us toe-to-toe. They thought they could bleed America with impunity. Well, they just learned the hard way what happens when you try to fight us directly. And even when they got lucky, one time in 40 days, and downed 2 of our pilots, they couldn't hold them. In a daring 14-hour rescue operation, 7 hours in daylight and 7 hours of night, both pilots were recovered safely. Not once, but twice. A daylight thunder run right up the middle of their country, boots on the ground. A midnight raid right up the middle of their country, boots on the ground. 0 American casualties. The Iranians humiliated and demoralized. We control their fate, not the other way around. That's why they came to the table. Iran's defeat is America's retribution for every American lost to Iranian terror, especially those brave troops killed by Iranian-made roadside bombs in Iraq that my generation knows so well, and for the suffering their regime has inflicted around the world. Now we have a chance at real peace and a real deal. The War Department, for now, has done its part. We stand ready in the background to ensure Iran upholds every reasonable term. And as everyone knows, nobody makes a better deal than President Trump. To the warriors of epic fury, I say well done. You're the backbone of our country. Your skill, your bravery, and sheer guts and grit showed the world what America is all about. I'm proud of you. We're proud of you. President is proud of you. Job well done. But stay vigilant and stay ready. To the families of our fallen, your sacrifice was in service of a historic cause, and we will always remember your heroes, our heroes. We will continue to honor them. And to our Israeli allies, thank you for being a brave, capable, and willing ally on this battlefield. The rest of the world and the rest of our so-called allies saw what real capabilities look like. They should take some notes. Our troops, our American warriors, deserve the credit for this day. But God deserves all the glory. Tens of thousands of sorties, refuelings, and strikes carried out under the protection of divine providence, a massive effort with miraculous protection. Dude 44 Bravo spoke for all of us. God is good. The chairman will now provide an even deeper military detail on the historic success of Operation Epic Fury. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for being here. I want to start this morning by honoring the 13 members of our American Joint Force who were killed in action thus far during this operation. Their sacrifice and that of their families is deeply important to us, and we are grateful for each of them, and will continue to mourn their loss. Their names and their bravery will never be forgotten. On February 28th, the President of the United States ordered the Joint Force to execute Operation Epic Fury with the direction to accomplish 3 distinct military objectives: destroy Iran's ballistic missile and drone capabilities, destroy the Iranian Navy, and destroy their defense industrial base to ensure that Iran cannot reconstitute the ability to project power outside their borders. Over the course of 38 days of major combat operation, the Joint Force achieved the military objectives as defined by the President. We welcome the ongoing ceasefire, and as the Secretary said, we hope that Iran chooses a lasting peace. But as Secretary Hegseth said, let us be clear, a ceasefire is a pause, and the Joint Force remains ready, if ordered or called upon, to resume combat operations with the same speed and precision as we've demonstrated over the last 38 days, and we hope that that is not the case. I want to congratulate and thank the leadership today at U.S. Central Command, including the Commander, Admiral Brad Cooper, the Deputy Commander, Lieutenant General Kevin Leahy, the senior enlisted leader, Fleet Master Chief Compton, and every one of the component commanders, senior enlisted leaders, and especially the staff down at U.S. Central Command, who does not get called out for any of the credit, but grinds 24/7 to help offer the options that we bring to the Secretary and the President. I also want to highlight the forces in the United States European Command under the command of Alexis Grinkowicz, who protected the western flank in support of CENTCOM. And I want to thank our partners across the intelligence community. Our ability to see and understand what an adversary is doing help us to be as decisive as we must be on the battlefield. And that includes DIA, NSA, NGA, the CIA, and the National Reconnaissance Office, and others. I want to thank the other combatant commands who have thus far contributed along the way to U.S. Central Command. This includes Transcom, Stratcom, Spacecom, SOCOM, and Cybercom, all of whom poured all in support of CENTCOM's efforts. And I want to thank, as the Secretary did, our Gulf partners who fought alongside each and every one of us every day. From the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, and Jordan, all who joined us together to defend and protect our people and our assets, and who, if required, stand ready to do so again. And I want to thank my team at the Joint Staff who work literally around the clock in order to help me offer the options that I must with the associated risks to the Secretary and to the President. They are the hardest working people that I know, and I am deeply grateful for their service. Most importantly today, I want to thank America's members of the Joint Force who've poured everything that they can into Operation Epic Fury, and their families who've worked 24 hours a day for 38 days. The Secretary and I could not be more proud of each and every one of you. And we deeply appreciate the support of the American people, who we know always have us in our thoughts and prayers, and we can feel this literally every single day. As the Secretary said, the United States has devastated the regime's ability to harm Americans and our interests for years to come. Since the beginning of major combat operations, the United States Joint Force has struck more than 13,000 targets, including in that 13,000 more than 4,000 dynamic targets that popped up on the battlefield and were immediately addressed, thanks to the exceptional command and control system and intelligence, acumen, and agility of our Joint Force. CENTCOM forces destroyed approximately 80% of Iran's air defense systems, striking more than 1,500 air defense targets, more than 450 ballistic missile storage facilities, 800 one-way attack drones storage facilities. All of these systems are gone. We've devastated Iran's command and control and logistical networks, destroying more than 2,000 command and control nodes and degrading their ability to target U.S. and friendly forces. It is, and we know this, incredibly frustrating right now to be a lower level Iranian commander trying to fight your fight. As the Secretary said, the Iranian Navy now lies mostly at the bottom of the Arabian Gulf, and we assess that we've sunk more than 90% of their regular fleet, including all of the major surface combatants, as the Secretary said. 150 ships are at the bottom of the ocean, and half of the IRGC Navy's small attack boats. Joint fires protected from the land, sea, and air executed more than 700 strikes against naval mine targets, and we had assessed that we destroyed more than 95% of their naval mines. And perhaps most importantly, we've destroyed Iran's defense industrial base, their ability to reconstitute those capabilities for years to come. We attacked, along with our partners, approximately 90% of their weapons factories. Every factory that produced Shahed one-way attack drones was struck. Every factory that produces the guidance systems that go into those drones was struck. Their missile defense industrial base is shattered, with more than 80% of their missile facilities gone, as well as their solid rocket motor production capability. It will take years for Iran to rebuild any major surface combatants, as more than 20 naval production and fabrication facilities have been damaged or destroyed. and nearly 80% of Iran's nuclear industrial base was hit, further degrading their attempts to attain a nuclear weapon. Throughout Operation Epic Fury, our joint force struck at the heart of Iran's ability to project power and threaten the United States and the region. And in order to do this, it required the service and sacrifice of more than 50,000 American warfighters deployed across CENTCOM, EUCOM, and stateside. The joint force flew more than 10,000 missions, including 62 bomber missions, 18 of which flew round trip from the United States to deliver bombs on military targets. Each of these missions was more than 30 hours in duration, and we did that 18 times. No other military in the world can do that. And it's a testament to the logistical force that quietly serves behind them. I cannot thank TRANSCOM and the Air Force Tanker and Mobility Force more. Combined with Army and Navy joint fires, we struck more than 13,000 targets. And along with our Gulf partners, we've thus far intercepted 1,700 ballistic missiles and one-way attack drones, defending our forces and our partners in the civilian population. And we remain ready to do so should the need arise. Along the way, we consume more than 6 million meals, and by my estimate, more than 950,000 gallons of coffee, 2 million energy drinks, and a lot of nicotine, but I am not saying that we have a problem. I've laid out the statistics, but it does not truly capture the nature of combat. This is gritty and unforgiving business. It's chaotic. It's hot, it's dark, it's unpredictable, and there's always unknowns. And our people proudly walked into those unknowns and continue forward. And through it all, the Joint Force has demonstrated the unwavering resolve that the nation demands of us. We are a mission-focused force, and our objectives always is to create the conditions for peace, and today we have, while be ready should that peace break, which we hope it is not. And we remain ready. Before I turn it back to the Secretary, I also want to quickly revisit the rescue of the Air Force fighter crew over the weekend. To give you an update, we've had, the Secretary and I have had the profound honor of speaking directly with many of the warfighters on that mission, from the downed crew that were picked up to those forces that went and got them. Hearing these stories firsthand has only deepened our appreciation for their tenacity, creativity, courage, and grit of the American Joint Force. This is a story that gets to the very heart and soul of who we are as a joint force, who we are as Americans. Selfless sacrifice in service of others. From the backseater, Dude 44 Bravo, whose pure and unadulterated joy at seeing those helicopters come into the valley to get his front seater in daylight because he knew the front seater did not have a jacket, and was so filled with heart-leaping joy at his front seater getting picked up, to the nighttime folks that went in and then got him, to the tanker forces that did the things that they had to do to give their own gas away, to the support packages, to those that went into the desert landing site not once, not twice, but 3 times as we fought through multiple contingencies. This was and is a joint force that has the guts to try, that does not quit, and who each and every day does the things that we must to dare to win. No lives were lost. We succeeded because the Joint Force is always at the ready. They trust each other, they trust their leaders, and they trust their training. And they remember first, foremost, and always that we do these things so that others may live, and we will never leave anyone behind. The success of Operation Fury thus far, and we hope it remains, culminates with this incredible rescue over the weekend, a direct example of the professionalism and courage of the United States military and our joint force. It's the service members on the front lines, our partners in the region, our teammates in the intelligence community, our civilian leaders in the OSW side of the house, the American workers who build the tools and weapons that we use, and the American people who back us up that help us to go do these things. I stand here humbled today, but frankly not surprised by what the Joint Force has been able to do. Their performance is fueled by a deep commitment to each other, their mission, and to our country. It is an incredible, deep honor for me to be a part of this Joint Force, and I'm humbled by the service and sacrifice each and every day that I am lucky enough to see. And finally, as I always do, I ask that we never forget our fallen and their families, especially those 13 fallen from Operation Epic Fury. May we always be worthy of their sacrifice and honor their legacy. And with that, sir, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll take a few questions.
Alexandra Ingersoll, One America News. First of all, thank you to our troops. What role is our military playing in escorting vessels through the Strait of Hormuz at this point? And the president said on Truth Social that the U.S. will be hanging around to make sure everything goes well. Obviously, Mr. Secretary, you just mentioned, we know the scars from hanging around in Iraq for decades. But what does that entail in terms of our military presence at this juncture?
Yeah, we'll be hanging around. We're not going anywhere. We're going to make sure Iran complies with this ceasefire and then ultimately comes to the table and makes a deal. So we'll stay put, stay ready, stay vigilant. As the chairman laid out, our troops are prepared to defend, prepared to go on offense, prepared to restart at a moment's notice with whatever target package would be needed in order to ensure that Iran complies. As far as the Strait, you saw the initial agreement that was struck, which is Iran's letting ships go through. So they'll be that will be happening. They will be sailing, and ultimately, as the president, I mean, we've done an incredible job militarily inside the Strait of Hormuz. What Admiral Cooper, I failed to mention Admiral Cooper's name. He's done a phenomenal job along with everybody at AFCENT and ABCENT and ARCENT and all the components down there, laying the groundwork for Iran. Iran doesn't have the same ability to defend it the way they did before, and so as the president has pointed out to the rest of the world, we barely get any of our energy out of the Strait. Just a tiny fraction. It's time for the rest of the world to step up and ensure that that stays open after President Trump and the War Department brought Iran to the place where they are voluntarily opening it right now, as was announced last night. Yes, Jerry.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and thank you both for the update. President Trump posted on Truth Social this morning that there has been a very productive regime change in Iran, and that there will be no enrichment of uranium, and the U.S. will work with Iran to dig up and remove the deeply buried nuclear dust. So I just have two questions here. So both you, Mr. Secretary, and the President have referred to a new regime in Iran. So is this not the regime that was at war with us for 47 years? And what do we think of when we're saying that this is a new regime? What are we thinking and what are we saying there? And then my second question is, with any future deal with Iran, is their handing over of all of their enriched uranium and they're promising not to enrich any future uranium a non-negotiable for the U.S.?
Well, it's always been non-negotiable that they won't have nuclear capabilities. And so right now it's buried and we're watching it. We know exactly what they have, and they know that. And they will either give it to us, which the president has laid out. They'll give it to us voluntarily. We'll get it. We'll take it out. Or if we have to do something else ourselves, like we did in Midnight Hammer or something like that, we reserve that opportunity. But what's clear, what the new Iranian regime knows, is they'll never have a nuclear weapon or the capability to get a path to one. As far as the new regime, you heard the list that I read. It's a new group of people who've seen the full capability of the United States military and has a new calculus about what it means to negotiate with us. Hence why they came to the table wanting a ceasefire and the shooting to stop. So this new regime, which the regime has been changed, has a different interaction with the U.S. right here.
Mr. Secretary, thank you. Of course.
I was going in front right here.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary and General Kane. Mary Margaret with the Daily Wire. 2 questions. Iran has said that safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz will be possible in coordination with Iran's armed forces and, quote, technical limitations. What do you believe that means? And then we've also heard reports that Iran has continued striking targets well into this morning. At what point are we beyond a grace period? Are we giving them a grace period? Is there a miscommunication there? What's going on with that?
What we know is that Iran is going to say a lot of things. A lot of people are going to say a lot of things, claim a lot of things. What has been agreed to, what's been stated, is the strait is open. Our military is watching. I'm sure their military is watching, but commerce will flow. And that's what you saw the markets react to, is that reality. As far as shooting that, we were monitoring it last night in real time. Of course we are. Iran would be wise to find a way to get the carrier pigeon to their troops out in remote locations to know not to shoot any longer one-way attacks or missiles, because it takes time sometimes for ceasefires to take hold. We're watching it. We're prepared if necessary, but we hope and believe that it'll hold. Yes.
Thank you, Secretary Hegseth.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Why are you so rude? Just wait. I'm calling on people.
Thank you, Secretary Hegseth. Yesterday in the President's Truth Social, he threatened to wipe out a civilization. That statement elicited a huge response in America. If Iran did not come to the table and make a deal yesterday by the deadline, was the President really prepared to wipe out Iran entirely?
Like I said, we had a target set, locked and loaded, of infrastructure, bridges, power plants. Remember, this is a terror regime, the military regime. Used all of these things for dual use to fund their military, to fund their terror campaigns. We had a lot of legitimate targets. They knew exactly the scope of what we were capable of. We hit some military targets on Karg, which is a bit of a signal. They can't defend it. And so Iran ultimately understood their ability, their future, to produce, to generate power, to fuel their terrorist regime was in our hands, was in President Trump's hands. That's why they came to the table. He ultimately said, we can take it all from you. Your ability to export energy will be taken away. And the United States military has the ability to strike those things with impunity. That type of threat is what brought them to the place where they effectively said, hey, okay, we want to cut this deal. Yes, right here.
Good morning, Mr. Secretary, Mr. Chairman. David Zia, Real America's Voice. During the ceasefire, what do we do when we see Iran rearming, regrouping, repositioning weapon systems and air defenses? And also, have we confirmed the specific model type of air defense or man pads that took down our F-15? And is it still a threat for our patrols?
We're still working through the specific details around that particular shoot down. And the crews, when they normally return, go through a debriefing process along with the other members of that flight that were out there. And they'll go back, as they always do, and forensically look at what are the tactical lessons learned. Did we sense or see something? Could we have done something different? We do that, as I mentioned in a prior press conference, every single time we take any loss like that, so that we become a quick learning organization. On the other part of your question around the movement of Iranian military forces, U.S. CENTCOM will continue to monitor that situation. They will continue to have a series of response options, and if need be, will come to the Secretary and to the President for guidance and be prepared to do the things that they're ordered to do so against valid military targets in accordance with the normal procedures that we have.
I would just note, it's a good question. The more Iran moves forces, the more they emplace forces, the more easily targetable they are for us right now. Remember, we're able to look, we're able to see, we're able to sense. We know so if they try to preposition, they're just creating riper military targets for us to strike should they make the wrong decision at the table. Right here.
Mr. Secretary, Louis Martinez with ABC News. First, a question to General Kane, sir. In your personal opinion, were the risks of the Strait of Hormuz being closed because of the conflict, were they mitigated early enough in part of the decision-making process to lead up to the decision to take action against Iran? And in your opinion, is Iran in control of the Strait of Hormuz? We just heard the Secretary say that Iran is letting them ships through. which would imply that potentially it's not just. The Secretary also said that the U.S. That the strait is open. You did say that, sir. But in your opinion, sir, how can the U.S. ensure safe passage? Mr. Secretary, can you say today that the United States achieved, the administration achieved the military goals that you've constantly delineated? But strategically, is that a victory because of that? And also, you said earlier that the president chose mercy. But you yourself had said 3 weeks ago that we will give no quarter to Iranian troops. How do you correlate those two? And do you think that your comments may have put American troops at risk?
No. I try to be nice up here, but you did listen to what I said, right? I laid out the objectives. We believe we've accomplished them, and it's a historic military victory. And President Trump has the option as the commander-in-chief to compel an adversary to the table, which is precisely what he did. And at the end, he chose to say, you know what, I'd rather talk to you at the table than obliterate your capability to export oil and fund your terror regime. So he did make that choice. That was his choice. He was a president of peace, and he's been willing to make those really tough calls that the American people elected him to do. Nothing we've done, not a single thing we've done. This is a typical, of course, it's ABC. Not a single thing we've done has put an American troop in more of a harm's way. We've only set our troops up to harm Iranian military capabilities, which they've done to devastating fashion and to great success. Mr. Chairman, you had a part of that
There's a
question.
lot in that question. I'd love to take that offline and answer it, but I'm struggling to find exactly what your question was, and that's probably me, not you. Okay, all right. Sorry about that.
Mr. Chairman, it was an indictment framed as a question, so you're forgiven for not understanding. Go ahead, please. No, you've had your chance. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much.
I believe so, based on the
Thank you very
diplomatic
much, Mr.
negotiation. So
Secretary.
I believe so.
It is
I
always
believe
nice
so.
to see you.
Yeah, sorry.
Mr. Kurd or Rahim Rashidi from Kurdistan. I'm representative Kurdistan TV and Kurdistan 24 today. I have two questions. Mr. Secretary, will your forces stay in the region and continue to defend and protect your allies and take the responsibility for their security? Second question is, as you mentioned many times, that you have full control of Iran airspace. Do you still have this control or not?
Well, thank you for the question. The chairman mentioned the UAE and Bahrain and Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, who have fought shoulder to shoulder with us, especially in defense of our facilities, of our people, of their facilities, and we appreciate that. So that coordination, of course, will continue. And then when it comes to the skies over Iran, I would point to Exhibit A and Exhibit B, 7 hours in the day, 7 hours at night. If any foreign adversary had attempted to do the same over our soil, they would have no ability to do so. Will they have a system here or there? Maybe. Do they have a network, a system that's capable of defending their skies? No, they don't. It's, as the chairman laid out, that's been dismantled, degraded, and destroyed. So it's a slight distinction, but an important one. Yes, right here. Go ahead.
General George in the middle of a war.
Excuse me. You got a question? Go ahead. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Two questions actually for you. So during this time, is the president are you still encouraging civilians to rise up against the Iranian regime, or are they satisfied with this new regime change, or is this two-week period to kind of see where that leads? Also, talked about the enriched uranium going in there. Would that require special forces or other military, our service members? Who would be basically going in there and trusted to going in there to get that uranium out?
Mm-hmm. Again, on the uranium, we're watching it. We know what they have, and they will give it up, and we'll get it, and we'll take it. If we have to, we can do it in any means necessary. So that's something the president is going to solve for. We already have with Midnight Hammer, with the place we put them in, and the reason it's in the situation where it is. The second one was about the people. Listen, I would love to see the Iranian people take advantage of this opportunity. They have been oppressed by the previous regime, and they'll have a new opportunity with this regime. That remains to be seen. That was not our objective in this effort, but they're brave people. Horrible things have been done to them by the previous regime. Tens of thousands targeted and killed and assassinated in a way the government never should. And we wish them the best, absolutely. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and General Dan Kane there giving an update on Operation Epic Fury at the Pentagon, calling it an overwhelming victory and saying the joint forces remain ready to resume if called upon. For more analysis on the Iran ceasefire, we welcome now Grant Newsham, retired U.S. Marine Colonel and a senior fellow at the Center for Security Policy. Glad to have you on this morning, Grant, to get your thoughts here. We just heard that press briefing from Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and General Dan Kane. How do you read the message they're sending?
Well, certainly they're describing a magnificent military achievement. This was just unbelievable what's been accomplished. It's almost hard to find words to get across just how successful it's been, how much damage it's caused to Iran. But one was left with the feeling that it would be good if they maybe had the press briefing 2 weeks from now. The ceasefire has been announced, and we have to see what is actually happens now. And that's something that a lot of us will be watching, of course. And then the other unanswered question is, has the nature of this regime changed, or is the same people still in place?
And what's your assessment of that in terms of the regime itself? There's not a lot of information coming out at the moment about the regime, but President Trump has said that the initial regime that was in place has been decimated. Of course, we know they've taken out most of the leaders and they've gone down the ranks to more and more other options. How do you see the regime as it stands now?
Well, we'll find out. It's certainly, there's fewer of them in the top ranks than there were. But one of the things about this part of the world is that until you have just unquestionably defeated your enemy so that he cannot operate, it's maybe a little too early to declare victory sometimes. One can imagine the Iranian regime saying, look, we just shot 40,000 of our own people. We just got the daylights beaten out of us by the U.S. military, but we're still here. And if necessary, we'll shoot another 40,000 and keep doing it as long as we have to. So that's a big question, is has the regime actually changed? They've absorbed an awful lot of punishment, but we'll know soon enough in the days, weeks to come, just how much different it is. And that is something that we need you to consider. We can't just ignore it and say, well, we've had regime change. Well, not necessarily. And I say this is a victory for us, for them. I'm not so defeat for them. I'm not so sure just yet.
General Dan Kane says to this point that the U.S. forces remain ready if they're called upon. How would you look upon resumption of the operation if it does come to pass?
Well, they've got the targets lined up. They're ready to go. And one notes that the Americans did not hit really the infrastructure, the electricity, the transportation, water, etc., and also the energy export facilities. For some reason, those were left alone, but they're very much available for destruction. And that is a very good option. It can be done almost instantaneously when a decision is made. But of course, the longer these things go on, a ceasefire, sometimes it just gets politically harder, psychologically harder to restart a war when people have sort of breathed a sigh of relief that things have stopped. So the longer it plays out, if the Iranians obfuscate, delay, in some respects, it makes their position a little bit better than ours.
Yeah, on that point, Colonel, General Dan Kane just now, and in many of the press briefings, most of them thanking service members and their families, as well as partners, for all of the dedication and effort that goes into this operation. If you could comment for us on the effect of that gratitude for the American people and the impact of public opinion on this operation.
Well, the public opinion really matters, and the troops, the forces really do appreciate it. When they know that what they have done is valued, respected, it makes a huge difference. And people like the chairman, Secretary Hegseth, the president, everyone, who praises what these people have accomplished. And it is just unbelievable. I don't think there's ever been a fight like this, probably in history. That's how impressive it is. And that's something that all Americans should take sort of pleasure in and gratitude, really. But at the same time, there's a huge chunk of our political class and even our population which seem to prefer that America lose in Iran. And that was noticed. And the idea was that, well, anything that helps President Trump is bad, anything that hurts him is good. And if America loses, well, that's even better. And you did notice that. And that's something that we haven't seen before. This is worse than it was even during the Vietnam era. But that was really a huge problem. One noticed it. But the respect that the troops are being given, the forces, that is well deserved. And hopefully that they learn that they receive that message, understand it. And as I said, the desire that America would lose, which you saw from too many places, it really is it's just unforgivable. Think about it. These are people saying, look, a regime that just slaughtered 40,000 of its own people, has arrested a lot more, it's hanging people. Well, that's the better side. Well, that shows you just how off kilter, say, a large number of people are in this country.
And what's the effect then of taking stock of the gains and losses in this war, as these press briefings have sought to do all along the way, especially in the context of accusations of fake reporting from the president recently, for example, about the CNN report saying that Iran had claimed victory?
Mm-hmm. Well, the reporting has been sort of odd in a lot of cases, and I said it doesn't seem really in a line with the facts as we know them. It was interesting just how sort of restricted the information about what was going on was. The Pentagon did a pretty good job, actually, of sort of revealing what needed to be known, but not the day-to-day, sort of minute-by-minute accounts of what happened. But the overall, with the press coverage, it was interesting. You'd often have the impression that reporters didn't know much more than just what regular people could glean from the internet, from other sources. So it's a different media environment than it was 30, 40 years ago. But that's just the way things are.
And let's look at Secretary Hegseth saying that just now that the new Iranian regime knows they'll never have a new nuclear weapon. What elements would need to be in place to ensure that this really does come to pass?
Well, a very good intelligence and also the willingness to instantly destroy anything and anybody who does try to reconstitute their nuclear force. Can we do that? I don't know. If the regime has not sort of changed its stripes and turned into something very different, getting nuclear weapons is going to be their ongoing objective, and they will do what is necessary to try to get that. And we need to be constantly alert to that and to stop it. Do we have the patience for that, and the devotion, the concentration? I don't know. Having watched this happen in North Korea, where we knew exactly what they intended, we knew what they were doing, and we let them get away with it. One is skeptical about what we're going to do with Iran, and say they'll pull back for a bit. There's only one, they can't do very much right now, but let some time pass, and they'll get at it again. And then what do we do? That will be the question. And President Trump isn't going to be president forever. So it could be an American administration decides it doesn't want to fight with Iran. So we have to see how this plays out.
A reporter just now asked whether there's a grace period in terms of the continuing strikes in some parts from Iran since the ceasefire took hold. The Secretary of War said the strait is open and it takes time sometimes for ceasefires to take hold. From your experience in warfare, how would you read the strikes after the ceasefire?
Well, I sort of expected the Iranians to let loose with a barrage or two. They've done that before. It makes them feel good. They just got the daylights knocked out of them. But it's very much in line with how they would operate. You'd expect that last shot. If it continues, well, that's another story.
Now, this morning, President Trump posting on Truth Social that the United States will work closely with Iran, which has gone through what the president said will be a very productive regime change. The Post continues that the U.S. is discussing tariff and sanction relief with Iran and that many of the 15 points have already been agreed to. Grant, your reactions to this post?
Well, in an ideal world, that this will be good if it comes to pass. I do think it's a little early to be declaring this much victory. These are people we've dealt with for 47 years. They're absolutely duplicitous. And the idea that somehow this regime, the same people who, still hanging people, are going to suddenly cooperate with us fully and do what America wants is, it's not one that is easily believed, but it could happen. But it may be overly optimistic here. But at the same time, President Trump is the president, and he deserves all of our support. And I hope he can pull this off. This is not an easy job that he's taken on, and he is the first president ever to actually do something about Iran. None of the others did, as much as they talked about it. He was the one who did it. And think of the alternative if President Trump had not gone after Iran now. You would have had Iran with nuclear weapons, and they would have used them. And President Trump was the one who had the nerve to do it. So, you have to read his tweets and, let's see what happens, see what he does. And the actual language, well, he's from New York, and he has a way of speaking that not everyone does.
Digging in now on his tariff strategy, President Trump also posted this morning that any country supplying military weapons to Iran will face an immediate tariff of 50% on all goods sold to the United States. Your thoughts on this and who it might apply to?
Well, China at least, and I wish it was 500% and not 50%, because China is going to do everything it can to help Iran rebuild, rearm. They'll try to do it quietly and not get caught. But to them, it's very much in Beijing's interest to have America sort of sucked in and bogged down in the Middle East. And that, I think, is who he's talking to. The Europeans as well. Some of them are very keen to do a business with Iran, always have. But the Chinese in particular are the ones that he's got in mind, I think, with this announcement.
Given your expertise on China, how do you assess Beijing's reaction to the Iran ceasefire? Of course, given its support for Tehran and also yesterday's veto at the UN Security Council on defending shipping through the Strait of Hormuz.
Well, China often does things that allow it to sort of play both sides. And it would, as I said, would like to have Iran as its proxy the way it has been, allowing China to exert influence in the Middle East, to destabilize it, to cause the Americans and the free world really to have to devote their attention, their resources to the Middle East instead of to Asia, instead of to Taiwan, Japan, instead of to more directly taking on China. So they like to have Iran sort of rebuild, etc. At the same time, if oil does start flowing again, well, China might get that cheap oil that they like. So economically, it helps them to have things moving through the Straits of Hormuz. But for now, they'll act like they're cooperating. But they, as I say, they play both sides of both sides of the game, and they do that just about everywhere.
With China seeking to expand its influence in the Middle East, could the Iran ceasefire inadvertently strengthen Beijing's leverage over global energy routes, including the Strait of Hormuz?
I don't know about that. I think they've really been back-footed this year with what happened in Venezuela in particular, but even more, the Gulf Arab states that control even more energy than Iran does, they are not happy with China. They know that China is what has kept Iran afloat, what has allowed them to fight and attack them. And say the Gulf Arabs, if anything, have shown that they would rather have the Americans around, see them as the better ally. And I hope that they feel as though that their reliance on the United States has been productive. But the Gulf states, the Saudis, the Kuwaitis, UAE, they've got no love now for China. And that works to China's disadvantage when it comes to global oil supplies.
Good to have you with us this morning. Grant Newsham, thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me.
And if you have any feedback on the show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at goodmorning@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. For round-the-clock original news coverage, watch us live at ntd.com/live or download our NTD app. I'm Stephanie Cox. See you soon.
That truly matters.